Hello everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon Adi. RK Newton, good afternoon. Srija, good afternoon. Smita, good afternoon. Am I audible and visible to all of you? Yes, Tanu, good afternoon. Somebody please ping me so that I can begin with today's short session of 25 to 30 minutes maximum. Yes, am I audible and visible to all of you guys? Please somebody ping me so that I can begin with the today's session. Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you guys. So again, like the previous sessions, today's session won't be much longer. It is just 25 to 30 minutes short session. Okay. So just pay attention carefully. Now, many of the aspirants have a question in their minds particularly. Sir, you have already covered modern India as a part of modern Indian history or as a part of YouTube series. Okay. Thanks, Kiran. So at this particular point of time, here, if you observe the previous lectures, yes, I would tell you, please watch the previous lectures of modern Indian history as well on YouTube. Okay. Therein, I have taught the things in quite basic manner. Here, I am trying to go in in-depth manner. Correct? Like if you might have observed the previous session of the Portuguese and the session of the Portuguese that I have covered previously. Okay? Here, I have covered Portuguese in quite depth and detail. Similarly, I have covered Dutch East India Company yesterday in more detail. Okay? So now, I am beginning with English East India Company's introduction today. On Saturday, that is day after tomorrow, I would be covering specifically how English East India Company established its supremacy over other European powers. Like how French were ousted of the game, Portuguese were ousted of the game, and finally Dutch East India Company, they were ousted of the game. And finally, English East India Company had a monopoly over trade completely in India. We will see that in the coming lectures. Most important one, before we understand the drain of wealth theory, we need to understand two important battles. One is Battle of Plassey, which took place in 1757. And the second one is Battle of Buxar, which took place in 1764. Okay? Because from Battle of Plassey, as per many historians, millions of pounds of money has been drained out of India after Battle of Plassey. So what is Battle of Plassey all about? So we will be exploring all these concepts in quite depth and detail in the coming lectures. Okay. So now let's begin with today's short video of English East India Company. English East India Company, like Dutch East India Company, is also a shareholders company. It's also a multinational company. In simple words, it was created on 31st December 1600 by charter of Queen Elizabeth. And approximately during the initial time, it had 215 investors. Okay. Now, English East India Company was being formed. English East India Company was being supported by the British Crown that go and wage war, follow the policy of imperialism, and in that case, the Crown is supportive to all of your acts. Now, at this particular point of time, we need to understand why English East India Company was more successful. Okay, I'll give you very few examples when we'll study in further lectures why Britishers were successful in India. Rather than saying in India, Britain, a small island nation, it had ruled over 23 to 24% of the world. Reason, they have majorly adopted two policies all across the world. One policy is divide and rule, specifically India. One policy is divide and rule, and second policy is carrot and stick. So they were very diplomatic in every act that they took. Correct? Divide and rule. There are many examples of modern Indian history or India's freedom struggle, where Britain, they have portrayed this policy by dividing the people on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion. Apart from this, also on the basis of regionalism. if you understand the recommendations of Simon Commissions, okay, this was what? Division on the basis of, or the policy of divide and rule. So similarly, what happened when English East India Company came to India? Initially, they tried to develop the trust of the local rulers. And when they developed the trust of the local rulers, okay, with the passage of time, they started taking advantage of this trust. English East India Company, they came in India specifically for trade in spices, cotton textile, indigo, because indigo is a crop which can be cultivated in tropical and subtropical countries. And one among them is India. Okay. Fourth, tea. Okay. I'll give you a very small example. At that time, tea consumption was quite in vogue in the region of Britain. And they used to import a lot of tea, specifically from China. I'll give you another important example. Once upon a time, Britain imposed duty or taxes on the tea in the region of America. America or USA was also once upon a time a colony of Britain. There were 13 colonies of Britain in America. And at that time, people were so used to tea that you cannot even imagine. As a part of American Revolution, there is one event which is quite famous. And every one of you might have heard about this. Boston Tea Party. Correct? Why? Because heavy taxes were being imposed on tea. So the major purpose they came to India was trade in tea. So these are the few essential commodities. That is tea, cotton textile, indigo. Okay? Specifically, and spices. Now, English East India Company sent its first agent to India, whose name was Captain William Hawkins, who came around 1608 in the court of Jahangir. Okay, we have seen the Mughal Empire in quite depth and detail. The foundation of Mughal Empire was being laid down by Babur. He was followed by his son, whose name was Humayun, who is considered as the most fortunate ruler, but unfortunately, as per many historians, he was the most unfortunate ruler of the entire Mughal dynasty. He was being succeeded by Akbar, followed by Jahangir. Okay. Now, it is believed that Jahangir, although he was a ruler, many historians do not call him Badshah. They call him Badshah Begum. Why? Because there was a lot of interference of his wife in the administrative aspects, whose name was Mehrun Nisa, also referred as Noor Jahan. At that time, around 1608, Captain William Hawkins visited the court of Jahangir. And at that time, Jahangir had a very good and cordial relations with the Portuguese. Captain William Hawkins, he stayed in the court of Jahangir for approximately 2.5 to 3 years. But initially, he could not secure the permission to establish factory in India. Like what happened? See, observe one thing. How with the passage of time, these people started gaining the trust of the rulers. Okay, Portuguese came, Vasco da Gama, second time Pedro Cabral came. What happened? They did not have cordial relation with the local rulers. They were ready to fight with the local rulers. One of the best example was the alliances of the five. The Mamluk Caliphate of Egypt, the Arabs, Ottoman Turks, Zamorin, ruler of Gujarat, just within a span of 5 to 10 years. But Captain William Hawkins, who was a representative of English East India Company, did not impose his things on the Mughals. He stayed the year till 1610, 1611. Then comes Thomas Roe and Captain Middleton. And they were given the permission to establish their first factory at Surat, located in western part of India. And with the passage of time, English East India Company established factories across different places in India. Precisely the east coast of India and the west coast of India. Okay. Now let me give you an example. First factory was in Surat. The first factory of English East India Company in South India was at Masulipattnam. My friends, if you remember yesterday's session, Hence, I keep on telling to have a good conjunction or correlation of what we have studied. You need to watch the previous videos as well. Correct? Dutch East India Company. Okay. Dutch East India Company, they had established their permanent base in the region of Indonesia, Ambayona. Correct? Why? Because they were trading in the spices, specifically clove and black pepper. And Dutch East India Company established its first factory in India at a place called as Masulipattnam. Now, English East India Company has established its factory in South India, first factory in South India at Masulipattnam, Andhra Pradesh. Very simple words. Obviously, in the coming years, there would be skirmishes between these two European powers. Correct? Try to understand things. Then they established around 1623 factories at Agra, Broch and Ahmedabad. Later on, they established factory at Odisha, Balasore. Again, at this place, there was a factory of Dutch East India Company, followed by Madras, and finally comes Kasim Bazar, which is in West Bengal. So now, English East India Company, now I'll give you a very simple example. Why English East India Company was successful in comparison to the other European powers. Like Dutch, corruption, and all the colonies of Dutch East India Company were completely splintered. In simple words, they were not properly managed or administered. Similarly with the Portuguese and similarly with the French East India Company. Hence, Dutch in the coming year were out of the game and they got permanently settled in Indonesia. Portuguese, they got permanently settled in the region of Goa. And French were confined to the region of Pondicherry. And the entire monopoly was established by English East India Company throughout India. Why? English East India Company had created 3 major presidencies, and through these presidencies, they used to manage the entire administration. Okay? Now let's understand precisely about the Madras Presidency. Hope the point is clear till here, my friends. Please answer in the comment section if you have any question, any query, any doubt. Please stop here itself. Feel free to ask. I'll repeat the concepts. Okay? Is it clear? Please answer in the comment section. Okay. Now, pay attention carefully. Formation of Madras Presidency. Now, the credit for creation of Madras Presidency goes to company's officer whose name was Francis Day. Okay. Now, we had studied about Vijayanagar Empire in quite depth and detail. Consecutively, one after the other, there were 4 dynasties that rule over the Vijayanagar, specifically Sangam, Suluva, Tuluva and Aravidu. So the last major ruler of Raja of Chandragiri, whose name was Damral Venkadri Nayak, he gave the region of Madras on lease to English East India Company. And English East India Company specifically acquired 3 rights. First of all, they can administer the entire region. Secondly, they can mint the coins. And the third most important one, they can fortify this region. Finally, around 1652, Fort St. George was being created specifically as a part of Madras Presidency. And it became the seat of power in southern India. As discussed, the credit for creation of Madras Presidency completely goes to a company's official named as Francis Day. So all the trade that was taking place in southern part of India, okay, it was managed majorly by Madras Presidency. It was named after what we say saint, whose name was George, Saint George, and specifically he was patron in England. Another important presidency that was created in Western India, which will take care of the trade or the administration in Western India and Central India. And that presidency was Bombay Presidency. Okay. Time and again, I've told you about one thing. Twice or thrice I've repeated this concept that a marriage alliance, okay, created the further way for English East India Company to expand in the region of Western India. Okay. Yes, good afternoon, Sustain. So in that case, what happened? Portuguese, like it is said that Portuguese princess Catherine Braganza, she was married to Prince Charles II of England, and they got the entire region of Bombay in a dowry of just ₹1. And what did Prince Charles do? Around 1687, Prince Charles II, he gave the entire region of Bombay to English East India Company on a condition of £10 per annum. And here English East India Company constructed Bombay Castle. And later on, this was elevated to the level of a presidency called as Bombay Presidency. Okay? Like there are officers who are also involved in the creation of Bombay Presidency, such as George Oxenden. Another officer, like it is said that he is also credited with the foundation of Bombay Presidency, that is Gerald Ongier. Okay, so this is how the Bombay Presidency was created. Okay, I'll repeat the point again in short. Madras Presidency, the credit goes to Francis Day. And in that case here, Fort St. George was being constructed. Bombay Presidency, the credit goes to specifically Gerald Ongier and George Oxenden. Otherwise, it was a matrimonial alliance or a marriage alliance, wherein Catherine Braganza, the Portuguese princess, was married to Prince Charles II. And Prince Charles II handed over the entire region of Bombay to English East India Company on a condition of £10 per annum. Later on, Bombay Castle was being constructed here. As I've told you, the credit goes to George Oxenden and Gerald Ongier. Now comes the entire game specifically of the Bengal Presidency, one of the most important ones. Listen to me very carefully for the next 2 to 3 minutes. Tanu, some of the names are important. I'm not saying all the names are important, but some of the names are very important. And probably one can expect a direct question in the prelims examination. Like, who is given the credit for creation of Madras Presidency? So it's Francis Day. Although you do not remember these names such as George Oxenden and Gerald Ongier, but still you have to remember Francis Day. So yes, certain names are important. Okay. Now, Calcutta or specifically Bengal Presidency. We have seen the Mughal administration, and we have seen that the entire Mughal empire was divided into different provinces. Okay, now let's understand this in a step-by-step manner. 1651 to 81, what happened? Then 81 to 90, what happened? Let's understand this. So the entire Mughal empire from the time of Shah Jahan was divided into different provinces. And these provinces were referred as Suba. Suba were further divided into districts referred as Sarkar. So the head of the Suba was referred as Subedar, also the provincial governor. At that time, specifically what happened? During the time of Shah Jahan, precisely from 1628 to 1658, okay, the governor or the Subedar of Bengal was Shah Shuja. Now Shah Shuja, specifically it is said that he gave the permission to English East India Company that you can establish your factory in Bengal. Now English East India Company, they established their first factory in Bengal at a place called as Hooghly. Okay, And with the passage of time, they established factories in Rajmahal Hills and Patna. So Shah Shuja gave them the permission. But obviously, if Shah Shuja is giving them the permission, he's expecting something in return. And what was he expecting? 3,000 rupees to establish factories at specifically Hooghly, Rajmahal and Patna. English East India Company's first agent in the region of Bengal was William Hedges. And William Hedges accepted this condition of Shah Shuja. And Shah Shuja said that nobody is going to disturb you in the trade that is going to take place in Bengal. Okay. Initial phase, the trade was good. But from 1651 to 1681, there were a lot of skirmishes between the agents of English East India Company and specifically the officers of the Mughals. Because, like for example, if somebody has to trade from the region of Gujarat to Bengal, they had to pay a toll tax. Apart from this, there were certain Mughal officers at the checkpost who used to extract exorbitant revenue from them. So obviously, like these people have already paid 3,000 rupees to Shah Shuja. And now Shah Shuja had given, like Shah Shuja has told them, you can freely trade in this region. But here what is happening? Continuous interference by the Mughal officers. And in this case, the trade gets hampered. So from 1651 to 1681, it was a period of skirmishes. Now William Hedges, he decided that why don't I fortify the place of Hooghly? And by now, from 1681, there was another person, Mughal emperor, who came to power. And everyone knows about this. He is considered as one among the most cruel rulers of the entire Mughal dynasty. His name was Alamgir, also referred as Aurangzeb. And during the time of Aurangzeb, the Subedar or the governor of Bengal was his maternal uncle, whose name was Shaista Khan. Now Shaista Khan comes to know that English East India Company has decided that they are going to fortify the region of Hooghly. So this was not acceptable to him. What happened? He attacked and captured the region of Hooghly and Kasim Bazar. And finally these people, English East India Company, they had to settle outside Bengal. Around 1690s, there was a company's official who was given the credit for creation of Calcutta Presidency or Bengal Presidency. And that company's official's name was Job Charnock. This name is very important. One is Francis Day, Madras Presidency, and Job Charnock, Calcutta or Bombay Presidency. What did he do? He purchased the Diwani rights of 3 villages at rupees 1200. And they were Govindpur, Sutanuti and Calcutta. Later on, these regions were elevated to a presidency which is referred as Calcutta Presidency or Bengal Presidency. The first, and here Fort William was being constructed. The first governor of Fort William was Robert Clive. I'm not saying the first governor of Bengal Presidency. In Bengal, in Calcutta, Fort William was constructed. And the first governor of the Fort William was Robert Clive. The first president of the Fort William specifically was Charles Eyre. Hope the point is clear, my friends. I will repeat the points again within short. Please pay attention carefully. The credit for creation of the Madras Presidency and Fort St. George goes to Francis Day. Bombay Presidency, it was a part of a deal wherein Prince Charles II, who had got Bombay at a dowry of ₹1, gave it to English East India Company around 1687 on a condition of £10 per annum. Now comes Calcutta. Now, the entire Mughal Empire was divided into different subas, and the Subedar of Bengal was Shah Shuja. he had given the permission to English East India Company to trade in the region of Bengal by taking 3,000 rupees from them. But later on, there were many skirmishes. So English East India Company decided that now they are going to fortify this place by construction of Fort William. So they constructed Fort William, by fortifying the place of Hooghly. Okay, Shaista Khan, the governor of Bengal during the time of Aurangzeb, did not like this, and he captured the region of Kasim Bazar and Hooghly. Finally, company's official, whose name was Job Charnock, what did he do? He purchased 3 villages at rupees 1200 by acquiring their zamindari rights, and they were Govindpur, Sutanuti and Calcutta, which was later elevated to the level of a presidency. And around 1700, Fort William was being constructed. Charles Eyre was the first president of the Fort William, first thing. And the second important aspect, Robert Clive was the first governor of Fort William, not Bengal. Is it clear, my friends? Please let me know. Yes? Clear? Now let me talk about one important aspect for the next 2 minutes, and then I'll stop my words. We are going to study all the important acts in quite depth and detail. So please do not worry about this. But let me tell you about the structure of the English East India Company. Now, there is an act in the coming year which is referred as Regulating Act 1773. Now, as per this act, let's understand about the things. English East India Company, as I've told you, it's a shareholders company. It's a joint stock company. So these shareholders, approximately around 125, were referred as Court of Proprietors. Proprietors basically means even I have a share in the company. Now, obviously, these 125 shareholders cannot make rules and regulations for the entire company. They will choose among themselves somebody who will frame the rules and regulations for the entire company. So these 125 shareholders choose among themselves 24 as court of directors who are going to frame rules and regulations for the company. Okay. Just now, we have studied that there were 3 presidencies of English East India Company: Bombay, Madras and Bengal. And there were governors of these 3 respective presidencies. There was a separate governor for Bombay, designated as Governor of Bombay. Separate governor for Madras, designated as Governor of Madras. But Governor of Bengal was designated as Governor General of Bengal. And the governors of Bombay and Madras were subordinated to Governor General of Bengal. The first Governor General of Bengal was Lord Warren Hastings. In 1833, Governor General of Bengal would now be designated as Governor General of India. And the first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. Okay. So now, Governor General of Bengal was assisted in performance of his duties by an executive council. And during the initial stages, precisely as per Regulating Act 1773, Governor General of Bengal, he had an executive council of 4 members. So who is going to become Governor of Madras, Bombay, Governor General of Bengal? Who will decide this? Court of Directors, who are making the rules and regulations for the entire company. Okay. Later on, these things will be changed. As per Pitt's India Act 1784, specifically, Board of Control will come over the Court of Directors. In simple words, Board of Control will now manage the administrative functions. Clear? So this is the basic pattern of working of the English East India Company. Hope you understood things in today's short session. Clear? Coming session on Saturday, I am going to discuss about how these people, English East India Company, it became one of the most powerful. Okay? Here we'll also discuss about the Carnatic Wars. Apart from Carnatic Wars, we will also discuss in the coming sessions about Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. And then we will move on with important Governor Generals and the different Charter Acts. Is it clear, my friends? Please let me know. Any question, any query, any kind of doubt, please feel free to ask. From day before yesterday's session, and even today's session. Is it clear? Yes? Answer in the comment section. Okay, guys. Now, last batch for GS Foundation P2I. And the sale will end on 20th of September 2025. My friends, it is a mission success sale and it is a last batch for specifically 2026. If I speak here concerningly, like there are three things: gold, platinum and diamond. So the price for gold is 7,499. For platinum it is 13,999 and for diamond it is 16,999. Most important aspect, you can visit the website of StudyIQ IAS and you can see the features of the courses. Precisely one of the features is there is a separate batch completely dedicated to English medium. And this will cater to the needs of the aspirants precisely from southern part of India and northeastern India. Like there are a lot many apps, they have videos precisely. Majorly the videos are in English, mix of Hindi and English, bilingual. But here the batch is completely in English. Secondly, proper focus on answer writing skill, direct interaction with the mentor. Like for example, I usually give the aspirants question or the answer writing. And the next day I discuss about that question in the paid class. Apart from this, there are many aspirants who send me on the Telegram and I go through their answers. I give them a genuine feedback. So you can interact with all the mentors, all the faculties. Okay. So sale, it is available just specifically till 20th of September 2025. So to avail the benefits of these batches, one needs to use the code Alok Live. I repeat the code Alok Live, which is flashing on your screen. Okay. Adi, yes, I will be uploading the PPT. Do not worry about this. See, as I've told you previously, I have already covered modern Indian history basics, wherein I have uploaded the PPT. This is nothing but a part of classroom explanation, how I go through in the paid classes in more depth and detail. So I'll try that I'll share the PPT as well, but I would request every one of you to please have a pen and paper along with you so that you can note down the important points. Correct? Like there are certain points which are not mentioned in the PPT, which is not mentioned what I've written on the board, but I've spoken about it. Correct? Like small example I'll give you. I've talked about the name William Hedges. Correct? William Hedges was the first company's agent in the region of Bengal. Second, I've talked about Gerald Ongier and George Oxenden, who are also credited with creation of Bombay Presidency. I've spoken about Charles Eyre. Okay, he was a president of Fort William, first president of Fort William. Robert Clive. So hence I usually keep on saying the aspirants, please have a pen and paper along with you so that you can note down the points in a very systematic and short format. Clear? Spectrum or the NCERT. NCERT is must. Okay. Tanu, you have a question. Either Spectrum or NCERT. NCERT is must. Second important book I would personally suggest for every one of you, please go through 12th standard Tamil Nadu State Board book. Like 11th standard Tamil Nadu State Board book is for ancient and medieval India. 12th standard Tamil Nadu State Board book is majorly for modern India and world history. So I would suggest you please go through Tamil Nadu State Board book, NCERT. If anyone wants to go for Spectrum, they can go for Spectrum. But my suggestion is, apart from Spectrum, one can go through another book, B.L. Grover and Alka Mehta. Why I'm suggesting these books? See, whenever you study history and when any particular event is correlated to a story, history becomes quite interesting to read, and you will find interest specifically in noting down these facts. Correct? Like for example, if I speak about Swami Vivekanand ji, if I speak about Ramakrishna Paramahansa as a part of Renaissance movement, if I speak about Swami Dayanand Saraswati, if directly I have mentioned the facts, what will happen? You will, while reading these facts, either you will fall sleepy or like it would be monotonous, it would be boring. But when I tell you a story on Swami Dayanand Saraswati, when I tell you a story on Swami Vivekanand ji, okay, and when I co-link that story with what we say fact, if I'm talking about Jyotiba Phule ji, who established first girls' school at Pune, but before that, if I talk about the story of Jyotiba Phule, how did he read a book called as Rights of a Man? Okay, written by Thomas Paine. In that case, things become interesting. So for that, I would suggest you read a book, B.L. Grover and Alka Mehta. If anyone wants to go for a Spectrum, they can go for it. Is it clear, Tanu? Any other query, guys? Yes, 20th September is the last day for enrolling into the 2026 batch. Okay, and the code is Alok Live, that is flashing on your screen. Okay, thank you guys. I'll stop my word for the day. See you guys on Saturday with the topic, how English East India Company established its supremacy in India in comparison to the other European powers. For now, thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.